Men, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? Story 1. That just because I'm quiet in your presence doesn't mean I'm upset. It just means I'm either tired, don't have anything to say, or I'm thinking about something. Dude, the worst is when people think being quiet means you're scared, weak, or a mute idiot. Reminds me of Rush Hour, when Lee tells Chris Tucker, "You seem as if you like to talk. I like to let people talk who like to talk. It makes it easier to find out how full of crap they are." Basically, just because I can talk doesn't mean I have to. A lot of women tend to see quiet men as weak or something. No, I just don't care to talk or react to everything, especially pointless dry comments. If you engage me in conversation or deep talks, I can ramble for hours, but pointless banter, I just stay away, to be honest. I used to get the majority of anxiety about hanging out with groups of people who were acquainted because I would always be called out for being too quiet. I was convinced that there was something wrong with me. Then, one day, I realized that I just had nothing to say because I was bored senseless with mindless chit-chat and banter. It's not engaging or interesting to me, so I was zoning out. What confirmed it for me was that I never had that problem when I was with a group of friends because I chose good friends to spend my time with who had interesting conversations, which says a lot about how men and women are socialized. We, women, are told we need to go into fix mode if someone even seems unhappy. We should be emotional support. We should make sure everyone is happy. Men are allowed to be alone with their thoughts and not be ready to entertain at any possible moment. You aren't taught that you have to be the caregiver to everybody else. A provider, yes, and that comes with its various insane and asinine standards. We are just socialized differently. It can also be an anxious response. I grew up religiously with a father who was verbally and emotionally abusive. My husband is an introvert, and I know his moods, but my irrational, anxious brain, thanks in part to who raised me, and because I won at genetics, diagnosed anxiety, is sometimes convinced that he's angry at me and I need to be ready for him to blow, and I need to fix stuff. I've literally asked him to grab my face, make me look him in the eyes, and say to me, "I am not mad at you." It's gotten better, but there are still days I need that, and he lovingly does it because he understands where it comes from. It's not fun to deal with a partner though, and I understand that. But why can't men simply say that statement out loud once, so we know and can do other things? We're not mind readers. Gah, nothing against you, but my bloke does this, and maybe 1 out of 5 times he's upset with me and the other 4 are just tired, because I never know what the silence means. First of all, we probably didn't even realize that we'd gone silent. Maybe there was a gap in the conversation and we just went off into our own heads off on a chain of random thoughts, without realizing how it might look to you. This is especially true if we're comfortable with the other person, as we won't feel the need to fill the silence with idle chatter. I know for me, if it happens during an argument, that means I'm done. Either we've had this argument before and I'm not wasting my time rehashing it, or you're going off topic and bringing in stuff from unrelated past arguments. Or I've said my piece and you either aren't listening to what I said or are refusing to compromise. And I'm not going to argue for the sake of arguing. Before I get to the point of blowing my top and yelling, or we start saying hurtful stuff, or storming off, which is unproductive in an LTR, I get this 1,000-yard, flinty-eyed stare where I will stare right through you with intensity. I had an ex-girlfriend who used to go ballistic when I did that, but I always said that Van Halen wrote the song 5150 about her. Why draw the line and meet you half the way when you don't know what that means? It's a huge part of why she became an ex. Story 2. Sometimes we need personal space, and it has nothing to do with our opinion of you. When I get home from work, I've been talking to people for 8 hours straight. I just want time to decompress and let my brain do nothing. My partner has been on her own all day, and she's desperate for someone to talk to. It causes real problems. I have this problem with my partner. Then, when I do build myself up to ask for an afternoon to myself, they manage to fall into this depressive spiral while I'm doing my own thing. They insist that it isn't my fault and it isn't my problem, but in a way, yes, it is on both counts, and I still have to navigate them out of the spiral after the fact, so it functions like a punishment every time I decide I want to do something by myself. But they're disabled and can't get out on their own, so it's not like I don't understand, but it's damn hard. The solution here is you plan an activity for them away from you. Like, babe, I ran a bath for you to enjoy your TV show, candles, bath bomb, while I zone out and watch football. Then we can meet up and both be energized to be intimate physically, mentally, and emotionally. Ideally, you both should take turns doing sweet things for each other, like book a massage, surprise them with $100 and encourage a Target solo trip, lol, give her money, tell her to get her nails done, grab her a book, and drop her off at a coffee shop, etc. Call her friends over to take her out for a surprise brunch, etc. Vice versa, she should make you wings on football Sunday and leave the house. It's important to see time apart as time apart to energize and learn something new or hang out with someone new so that you can bring new info into the romantic relationship. That's how you need to pitch your decompress time, not as time away from her, but as her chance to do something for herself, so that you both can have something to talk about. Either she makes herself feel good, phone calls, massage, shower, hobby, or she makes herself interesting, hobby, activity, friends, work. But of those things are femininity and excitement, which are integral to relationships, play and relaxation. I have the exact same issue with my girlfriend, but in reverse. I'm usually the more extroverted one between the two of us, and I work mostly by myself all day. I'm not totally isolated, I can find people to talk to, but I'm the sole shipping/receiving person of a pretty small company. She is a teller at a major bank. It rhymes with Fells Wargo, and has to talk with customers all day, every day. By the time I get off work and I'm there to pick her up, I'm desperate for a conversation with my best friend. But she is socially burned out from the workday and just wants to relax. I completely understand her point of view, and she understands mine, but just because we get where the other is coming from doesn't mean the problem is gone. Story 3. I like to be touched too. Put your arms around me. Play with my hands. Rub your hands on my body. Don't just sit there and get rubbed like some regal cat. My last partner took me months before he would let me rub his feet, and he has bad feet, which were always sore. Nice and clean though. It was like one of those people trying to help an injured stray dog. I had to gain his trust, not look right at him, and then bam, foot massage. My husband and I always watch a show or something on YouTube in bed before going to sleep, and it's like unofficially designated rubbins time. I'll snuggle up next to him and he'll rub my back while I rub his chest and stomach. Getting him to take that big deep breath in and slow exhale/sigh, or to make those little happy noises, a little involuntary moan, makes me so happy. This has been my biggest issue. It honestly surprises me how many women just don't touch men sensually like this. You would think it would be very common, but something tells me it's something about the way society currently is, that women don't naturally assume this is what men want. I may be off base, but honestly, I don't know. It's baffled me for a while. Do I just need to verbally tell every woman I date to touch me? I don't know. Thanks to anyone who read my ramble. Girl here. Oops. Honestly, I think it could be because of love language/communication, or also hypermasculinity. I love physical touch and giving any partner rubs, scratches, kisses, or reassuring touches. Most men I've been with have actually hated it or gotten angry at me, like I'm annoying them for asking or assuming to rub their back. One or two have been shocked I've ever done that in the first place, which only makes me want to give it more. I've just started to assume no man wants my touch because it's seen as annoying, etc. Maybe past partners have assumed the same from past experiences. Not any fault on you. Try communicating your needs and wants. Bring it up casually or have a serious talk about it. Communicate and compromise if needs be. I'm a woman, but I have experienced how true this is, and it's one of the things I definitely feel empathy for. Humans, no matter their sex, are factually social animals. We thrive within social groups like many other animals, and while not all humans like physical affection, it's a human experience that is natural and deeply ingrained into our evolution. So it is wild to me that it ever became a thing that physical affection is tied to male masculinity. Every male partner I have ever had has expressed their enthusiasm when I first played with their hair, rubbed or scratched their back, cuddled them from behind like a big spoon, etc., etc. I'm not up for physical touch 100% of the time because of sensory issues, but when appropriate, I've always been handsy in a normal way. I also do this thing that I also do with animals because it's almost like a calm button. I gently run my finger along the bridge of the nose, up between the eyes and over the forehead, and then caress, or whatever, the head. There are cultures around the world that do not see this type of physical touch as a sex or gender thing. so men can hug, hold hands, and generally be normally physical without negative judgment. Story 4. If something we say can be taken one of two ways, and one of them upsets you, it's not that one. I'll give you a great example that I did in high school. My girlfriend went on a cruise with her best friend. We were looking at photos from the trip with that friend and her parents. I think it was the best friend that said something about my girlfriend being cute in a photo, but whatever it was elicited a response from me that was, "I see two cute girls." Now, what I meant is that there were two photos of her looking cute on that page, but what everyone else heard was me calling the best friend cute as well. It was a dumb thing to say for sure, but I had an intention, and it was not to hit on her best friend in front of her, or at all. I've learned this from my father. He is very low maintenance, and, well, being a girl, I am not, so he tries to compliment my efforts, and sometimes he doesn't word things right. One of my favorites, and I remember getting upset at the time. I was getting ready for my junior prom, and when my girlfriends and I finally came out of the bathroom, he looked at us and went, "Well, I can certainly see why my bathroom was occupied for 5 hours. In his mind, he was telling us that we were stunning and looked great for all that time that we put in, and our teen brains just heard, "You took forever." Really depends on the person, to be honest. Yes, if you're a kind, considerate, and loving person or partner, sometimes you can misspeak or be misinterpreted, and your partner should give you the benefit of the doubt and an opportunity to explain what you meant and or apologize if you were a bit careless with your words. But some guys who are immature, sexist, and a bit mean or outright abusive either want to say or do something hurtful or are extremely inconsiderate. They enjoy cutting women down, making them feel insecure, taking their resentment out through subtle digs, or just don't care to consider their partner's feelings. Some are very intentional about it and leave enough space for plausible deniability so they can play it off as just a joke, or the woman reading into things too much, or being too sensitive or unreasonable. Most women are reasonable people who, when typically treated well by men in their lives, are willing to assume good intentions. If they lean towards an upsetting interpretation, when a non-upsetting one exists, it suggests an issue of trust. Gottman wrote about this. In high-trust relationships, even comments that can be interpreted as negative by a neutral third party may instead be interpreted positively within the relationship. But in low-trust relationships, the reverse occurs. Even positive comments are more likely to be interpreted negatively. So, if your partner tends to assume the worst when you say something, even when an obvious charitable interpretation is available, it suggests you haven't reached the level of trust necessary to be given the benefit of the doubt. Story 5. After chatting with one of my friends for 10 minutes on the phone, we really were talking only about his car. No, I don't know if his girlfriend is in town. No, I don't know if his mom is fine or if she is alive. I have no idea if his job is good or bad. No, I didn't ask that. Why would I ask that? I only know a little more about his car, and that's really it. I have an annual trip with the same 5 other dudes that have been going for 23 years now. We all live in different cities, and every year we meet up for a long weekend. I know most of their wives' names. I know how many kids some of them have, and I know some of their kids' approximate ages, but I don't know all that information for all 5 guys. I couldn't tell you what Paul does for a living. Something with software development, I think. Rory has 2 kids, definitely a son, but maybe a daughter. My wife is baffled by this. It simply doesn't come up. We talk about beer, video games, the pasta sauce John makes every year, etc. Important stuff, you know? I'm not judging this at all, but I found it's a really interesting dynamic amongst men in my life. To me, a woman, they'll talk about the male loneliness epidemic, the way men's mental health is ignored, etc. All are entirely valid and things I do think we need to address. Men I know are often struggling and they don't have the same sort of communities around them that women build. I don't think that's the fault of men, but I do think a lot of it is about how women are socialized to be friends and how men are socialized to be stoic. The commenters below mentioned that they don't even know the names of their friends' wives, if their mom is alive, or how their newborn is doing. And that almost definitely goes both ways in the friendship dynamic. They don't know about their friends and their friends don't know about them. Of course they're lonely. It seems like the minutia and the one comment below said it feels disrespectful to ask about things like their relationship, etc. But like, an investment in knowing another human and being known by them is how you build an emotional connection, and that's how you combat loneliness. So many men I know want to be known, but they don't seem to know how to organically create that. Again, this is said with zero judgment. There's so much that goes into all of this. I just think it's interesting to observe in my own life and also see it written out in many of the comments below yours. I read it a little differently. The guys who have annual hiking trips with their buddies or who call their friends every Sunday to talk about their cars likely aren't the ones complaining about male loneliness. Sure, they may not know a lot about their friends' lives, and vice versa, but they still have a community and are getting emotional support from their friends in different ways. There's some truth to the story about how guys might comfort their best friend after a major loss by simply showing up at their house with a six-pack of beer and drinking in silence. I agree with you, though, that guys are socialized differently, and it makes it harder for us to build communities or deeper relationships that we find fulfilling. Yeah, I don't really talk about that kind of stuff with my friends, but I know stuff about them. I've met their partners and am friends with many of them, except for one guy who lives out of state and changes partners a lot. I know how many kids they have and most of their names, except for the ones that are named like Addie or Aiden. I don't know how old the kids are because that changes all the time. I've met most of their families and some not even at the wedding. I guess I'm doing better than most guys. He told me what he felt like sharing, and today he just called to talk about cars and that's it. Maybe tomorrow he'll feel like telling me about his girlfriend or his mom or some other random crap. I'm not about to interrogate my friends for every scrap of information I can get about their lives at every opportunity. That'd feel weirdly aggressive. I'm not his boss demanding an update or some crap, and even if I tried, "So how's your mom?" is usually just met with a, fine, I guess. And then an awkward silence until someone thinks of something else to talk about. So, yeah. Story 6. No, we don't need more firewood, but I like chopping things. I can hang out with my friends for hours and not get an update on their love life. They didn't offer the information, and I frankly don't care. I have 3 guys who I consider best friends. Really good dudes. I would do anything for them, or their partners and kids, and they would do anything for me and my family. Been friends with one of them for over half of my life, one of them for over a decade, and the other one for 7 years. We have never discussed our love lives with each other. The closest I came to that with the one who I've known the longest was when I used to be super religious. I encouraged him to wait until marriage. Funny enough, my now wife got pregnant with our baby before we were married, so he did mess with me a little about that one. It's so weird to me how women are so comfortable talking about their love lives with each other. My husband is a low-key gossip, a fiend. Like, he loves hearing scandalous crap that's a secret. He has a lot of secrets because he doesn't spread the ones he's trusted with. But despite that, he and the boys don't sit around talking about their love life. What does happen sometimes, though, is one of the other guys that can't keep secrets finds out stuff from their partner about their friend's love life, and they share the tea when that person isn't around, because there's a couple of them that gossip like old ladies playing bridge. It's never fun stuff, though, that they're actually really appropriate about. Story 7. That is, I don't know how to fix everything. I just have an inherent understanding of how things physically interact, and my monkey brain is good at workarounds. I'm no genius. I was just left alone a lot as a kid. In a similar vein, I'm just willing to look stuff up. I don't have some inherent knowledge of how to patch drywall. I needed to look that crap up, fail at it a bit, and eventually get it right. I don't want to have to do every minor repair or install that has to happen because you know how to do house stuff. It doesn't take so much as a high school diploma to install a curtain rod. Mostly, it just takes a small amount of will and the instructions in the package. I feel this in a similar way. Somehow everyone I know thinks that I'm some sort of tech wizard who can fix their tech problems by snipping my fingers. Yeah, I do know a thing or two about computers, but most of the time, I'll either guess based on what I know does what in a PC, or Google the problem, especially when it's Apple, which I have no idea about. Why is nobody able to just Google their problems? Simple answer. It's easier to just have you do it. The average person has low confidence in their own ability to solve technology problems. The friend or family member with the most willingness to solve such problems becomes the default technical support person in the group. Take it as a compliment. They believe in your abilities enough to entrust their precious devices to you for repair. If it bothers you having to always support everyone in that way, you have a few options. Get good at saying no. Claim to be busy and promise to get to it later. Sometimes they'll get impatient and fix it themselves or find someone else. Or barter with them to make it worth your time. And get them used to investing something in return. Not monetarily necessarily, but like if I had a fresh plate of cookies here, I'd enjoy working on your tablet a lot more. Story 8. That I am not responsible for what I do in your dreams. That is not actually me, so why are you so mad at me? An initial reaction after waking up is not unreasonable. It can take your brain a bit to be convinced it was really a dream, but holding a grudge all day about it, that's just nuts. At best, it's magical thinking of the, well, if I dreamed it, I must have a reason to suspect variety. People in my life show up in my dreams. I always tell them, because I don't want to be hanging on to the subconscious hostility I know I'll have or not mention. I'm basically looking for them to say, and if they don't know what to say, I'll prompt them, that they would of course never punt my dog because A, it's wrong, and B, it would upset me. I know they didn't really do the things, but it really helps to tell me, and have them tell me, that they would never do the things. All they really want is an acknowledgement of, wow, that's screwed up. Screw dream of me. He sucks, because when they wake up it still feels a bit real or hurtful. So they try to get over that together with you. But usually get something like, well, it's not me. What do you want me to do about it? Like, duh, they know that. Just treat it like any other dream that you aren't in. If their dream boss did something awful, screw dream boss man. That's so screwed up that he would pass up for a promotion. Same for you. Dream me again? Screw this guy, he's a problem. You can even make it funny. Say you'll arrest Dream You the second you see him for his crimes. Whatever you want. But don't just state the obvious. Well, it's not actually me, so blah blah blah, and expect them to feel better about it. Everyone knows it's not actually you, but sometimes dreams are so realistic that the emotions stay around longer than we'd like them. So they want to talk it through with someone to release all that. Make it funny and become a united front against Dream You, and it won't be a problem. Story 9. Just ask me the question you want the answer to, not the question that should lead me to know the answer to the question you want the answer to. My wife will often make some partial statement and then be exasperated when I can't finish her thought and have to ask clarifying questions to make sure that I'm not assuming the wrong thing. Without clarification, I would totally assume the wrong thing 100% of the time. I realized I was never being attributed to nice things and only remembered for the bad. So I stopped finishing sentences or doing things unbidden, etc. I will instead ask if they want something before I do it, or will say, "Is that you asking me for help?" So they realize how often I do and how far they will go to lead me to something without asking. There's a big problem with actually asking for stuff, and I feel like no one sees me as a nice dude, even when I go out of my way to do stuff. So now I make sure people see it, or I'll tell them I'm doing it/did it, or will make them ask me directly for help or to fix something. Every argument was getting to be how I didn't care or didn't do things, and I was left thinking, but I'm constantly cleaning up your messes or fixing stuff or getting you little snacks and stuff. Most of the stuff I do is so that you won't get mad or because it'll be easier for you. Then being told you don't do anything really sends you up the wall, because if you stop and only reciprocate them, you then are told you aren't being nice anymore, or you're upset, and why are you acting like that, etc. It's just 1,000 times better to make them finish their thoughts or sentences and be direct. The problem is they sometimes think if they have to be direct, it also means having to be nasty or condescending about it. I think this might partly be a socialization issue. I find a lot of older women take direct questions as rude and will pad everything in several layers of roundabout hinting. It gets passed down to the next few generations after. I had to teach my family that saying no wasn't a declaration of anger. My current partner was so used to his ex's non-questions that for the first year we dated, he kept panicking when I'd ask a quick question or answer directly, thinking I was upset. Story 10. Expressing emotions in a way that is deemed acceptable. Finding the balance between being strong and steady while also being open and vulnerable at the same time. Especially when expressing emotions wasn't encouraged or accepted growing up. It's not that I don't feel or want to share information, it's more that the how and when to express them can feel complicated, especially when people are trying to pry you open, repeatedly demanding you tell them how you feel at that exact moment. Your first paragraph sums up a huge dilemma I carried for 25 years. To add to expressing emotions wasn't encouraged or accepted growing up, I didn't learn any of it because I didn't see it at home growing up. And now I'm finally learning the relationship basics that my wife needs from me. My wife loves and encourages me and gives me feedback to know when I present things correctly. It's hard to learn at my stage in life, but she deserves more and better than what I was giving for most of our marriage. People don't understand why I freaking rage at that movie Inside Out, where they can see all the emotions in people's heads. The female characters have a bunch of different emotions going on. The male characters, the one shot we see of Dad is just anger and laziness. The one shot we see of the son is just anger. We have other emotions. We're just not shown in any way how to use them. We're taught not to show anger, but when needed, used it to be violent and protect. Other than that, we just get told those other emotions aren't really important. Sad really shouldn't be used in front of a girl. That's about all we get on emotional regulation and how to balance them. A woman will want you to be confident and secure, but humble and aware that insecurities exist, and knowing full well that you're not perfect, but also not exhibit any insecurity or doubt to her. Stepping out of those parameters leads to the ick, which is an extremely toxic term. As a man, you're expected to be perfect in the current moment. Otherwise, you're less than or impossible. Story 11. No, you didn't actually tell me what you thought you told me. Half my fights with my fiancée happen because she says something that is definitely untrue. I correct her, and somehow in the course of the argument, she will reiterate my original position, but present it like it was her idea. Then, we're no longer fighting about X, we're fighting about whether she meant X, which is a narrative she can control. I think it's a deflection tactic. I try to explain that meaning something different than what you said is the fault of the person explaining for failing to communicate in a healthy manner, and it is not unfair to hold her accountable for things she said, even if afterward she claims not to have meant them. Even after that, sometimes she gets mad that I'm telling her what she meant. She'll say, "You don't get to decide my intentions for me." I'm not. I'm trying to get you to be accountable for lying and blustering. Like, you were wrong in a completely innocent way, it wasn't a big deal, and then you made it the biggest deal you could rather than just admit it. It just confuses me. Oh man, there's an Adele song where the lyrics are, "Just 'cause I said it doesn't mean that I meant it. Just 'cause you heard it. Then don't bloody say it." I mean, I get that things can be misconstrued, but that's not what the song is saying. It's saying that depending on my emotional state, I may say the thing I don't mean. If you can't be held to account for what you said because you didn't mean it, or meant something else, or were in a bad mood when you said it, or whatever else, then there is zero point in me listening to what you say. Story 12. We need acts of sporadic romance as well, whether it's a box of candy for no reason, flowers, etc. If you like the way you feel when they happen to you, 9 times out of 10, we would as well. I write my boyfriend little love notes, stuff I think is cute about him. Poems, both funny and romantic, movie quotes, puns, drawings of cats, etc., and leave them in crazy places around our apartment. Like right now, there's one that says, "You're my favorite one to spoon, but I love it when you fork me," taped to the bottom of the cutlery drawer. That's been there for about 2 months. Very excited for the day we get so lazy that we run out of silverware. I try so hard to be sporadically romantic for my boyfriend, and it sucks because he has a hard time accepting it. His last long-term relationship was very difficult and toxic, and I try to show him the love he deserves, and he feels bad accepting it. We live 3 hours away, and while he was busy, I drove over to surprise him and I brought a small gift. Story 13. How hard it can be to get a date / how soul-crushing online dating is for most guys. To give you a good example, a female friend and I decided to compare Tinder matches one time. We agreed that we were both around the same level of attractiveness. I had 20 matches, and she had 20,000. No exaggeration. The disparity between men and women on dating apps is massive. It can be hard for a guy to get a date, more difficult than women might think. I have a good smile and nice eyes, and women think I have a parade coming through my apartment. Nothing could be further from the truth. And if you don't have a parade coming through, you're treated as a failure and a disgusting human. Clearly something must be wrong with you if you're a half-decent guy and not swimming in dates. The bar is so low for men. So if you're not in a relationship, then clearly you must be a craphead. So many women unironically think like this. Story 14. It's hard to explain that it feels like my worth is directly tied to what I can provide and compared to what other guys can provide. I have little dating/relationship experience, but I have gotten this vibe every single time. I struggle with this as an adult woman. I provide for myself. I don't need that in a partner. Guys seem kind of adrift when their de facto value is not important to me. Not being needed is deeply unsettling to many men, and I don't know how to fix that. This so very much. It's not even just limited to romantic relationships. There are lots of times at work when it's screamingly obvious I could literally fall over dead and people, not just women, would be most concerned about finding someone to do the things I do, even as my slowly cooling body continued to twitch on the floor. Thanks for watching and listening to the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. It really helps us out. For more videos like this one right now, there should be one popping up on the video screen soon, or you can stop by our channel where we have literally hundreds. Thanks again, and see you next time.